searching for you. I'm still searching for you. From dirt to the sky, I'm still searching for you. 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 I'm still from dirt to the sky. I'm still searching for you.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
You disgust me.
Who gives a shit?
Go on.
I made it the fuck up.
I'm it. I'm it. I'm it. I'm it. And it is glorious. And I run. Just for fun, 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 just for fun.
I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
Just for fun, 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 just for fun.
Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land, and welcome to the Week in Geek. Well, Tuesday with the Geeks, anyway. And yes, we hit 1K today. Thank you very much to Ironcaster for helping me get past that hurdle. And let me tell you, man, when you're on your last, 10 or so people to join, it's like literally every single person who joined there at the end. I mean, it's notable. It's because it's kind of like it's a real proof that your joining really does count.
Well, I saw you were just right at the finish line. You just had to get that last couple people over. So I kind of got a little word out for you.
I appreciate it, man. So, yeah, we got officially monetized. I mean, actually, we were already monetized, but we couldn't actually get ad revenue or anything until we hit that 1K mark, and we did that this morning. And yeah, as soon as I found out that we hit 1K, man, I just went over to YouTube and turned on all the ads and stuff. So now, unfortunately, yeah, you'll be getting ads if you're restreaming this, but hey, just let that encourage you to watch us live. We're more fun on live anyway, because half the time we show stuff on here live that I end up having to cut out later for copyright claims. So you're like, oh, I wonder what they were watching. But anyway.
Tune in live and find out.
Tune in live. See the show for real. Well, we've got Ironcaster. We've got Greg from Iries. And yes, we have a special guest. We have Matt D'Amico.
Hey,
How you
thanks
doing,
for having
sir?
me on, guys.
Oh,
I
hey.
really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Yeah, Driving a Drag is only 820 more. Yeah, no kidding. Mercurius for Australian $2 Yes, money comes rolling in now. Well, I wish. Honestly, I think they only pay like 99 cents per viewing or whatever, or maybe 3 cents per viewing. So it's, I guess, if you really want to keep helping out the channel, just before you leave work in the morning or something like that, turn on YouTube and hit play all on my streams, and then you can just watch. Yeah. But yeah, it helps, man. I mean, anything helps. And hey, Mal, it's good to see you. Oh, you managed not to drive over anybody? Oh, that's good, man. You're doing better than half the people of a certain nationality that drive in Canada.
Those
I won't.
Norwegians.
No, not the Norwegians.
Oh. The Swedes.
Yeah, no, not in Canada. In Canada, it's it's people who share your name but do in fact not come from your part of the country.
The Dutch.
No.
We'll get back to this later. I'll keep trying to figure this out.
Okay, I'll give you a hint. They share your name, but they don't live in teepees.
Ah,
Yeah. Anyway,
the Filipinos.
yes, the Filipinos. Those darn Filipino drivers. Yeah, no. Put them in a boat or something. They're better. I love Filipinos, actually. One of my best friends growing up was Filipino, and they are awesome folks. But yeah, I'm looking over our collection of shorts, and yeah, I just may have to get rid of Take 'Em to Detroit because we almost never use it. What do you think? You don't remember the clip? Oh, here, I'll show you the clip.
And as for my American friend, the CIA thinks it can infiltrate the mountain of Dr. Crud.
You can't scare me, you slant-eyed yellow bastard.
Take him to Detroit.
No! No, not Detroit! No! No, please! Anything but that! No!
Truly a crime, truly a punishment far out suiting the crime.
I mean, yeah, it's Detroit, man. It's like you might as well, I think I'd rather be, put in the Iron Maiden or put on the rack. Just please don't send me to Detroit.
It's always good to rotate the clips if we can find some good new ones.
Well, I tried to, I started, I put the asteroid clip on and the sesame cake one. So, those are new.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to find some more new ones because I got a whole bunch of them here that we're not using. But some of the classics are still good. Like, this is still one of my
They're
favorites.
dissolving this thing in a molten salt, and they're doing electrochemistry on it. Why don't they call it molten salt? They want
The George Lucas Metal Gear. I love that one. Well, so why is Matt here today? Matt has got a new DCC module, right?
Weird Frontiers. So
Weird Frontiers.
So David was gracious enough to grant me the okay. David is a firefighter, like many of you know, and I'm a retired police officer. So I just told him straight out, if a firefighter could do it, all the cops could probably do it better. So why don't you give me a shot? Yeah, he was gracious and admitted that, yeah, I was probably right. So yeah, he, all kidding aside, David has been spectacular. He gave me the okay. I threw some ideas at him. I worked, it wasn't really work. I enjoyed doing it. What I did is I took some experiences out of my past. I built a campaign setting around where I live in Arizona. So I live over by the Superstition Mountains in Mesa, Arizona. So I look at the mountains all day. I'm up constantly riding my horse. I usually go out in the mornings, so had plenty of inspiration. Sent the process for DCC and for Weird Frontiers as you come up with your ideas. You send them over there. You get your approval. They make sure that you're not doing anything outlandish or offensive. Everything passed the first time, so I guess I wasn't being offensive, which was surprising because some of the stuff in there is graphic-ish. I mean, people die. But everything came back wonderful. They liked my ideas. 6 months later, the Kickstarter started yesterday. So we're at also, not to take away from your 1K, but I hit 1K this morning.
Hey.
So I was super happy. I'm an unknown artist, first time publishing. I was part of the big D&D demonic scare in the 80s. Got the newspaper article to prove it. They took pictures of us, and we didn't really know that we were going to be used as it was actually a newspaper back then, but to sell papers that say, "Oh, we're all going down this path of worshiping Satan." So we started. They posed us all up. I've got this great picture from when I think I was 12. And we thought it was cool. We were going to be in the paper, and then we found out, they basically were saying that we're all devil worshippers. My parents weren't thrilled with that, but so I've been playing for like 40 years. I run my own homebrew. Have run, countless games in different, Pathfinder, BX, 1E, 3.5, all through there. Talking to my son, who is a wonderful writer in his own. He's like, "Dad, why don't you just do this?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, nobody really wants to do it." He's like, "Did you guys, your mother, you and Mom basically always tell us, like, if you don't do something, then it's always a failure." So I was like, "Okay, I tell you what, if you'll continue to write," he's a junior in high school, he's going to be a senior actually. I'll do it. So then I put together my stories. I used a lot of people from my past. Most of them are dead. Kind of fit in some cowboy stories in there. We spent a lot of time on horseback growing up. We moved here in 1982. There was not a lot out here. So my childhood beginning was 10 years in New York, 10, 12 years in New York, and, basically in the Bronx. And then we moved to Arizona. So we had the same type of cowboy personality, but instead of an Italian accent, we had, instead of yous, we had y'alls, which was real fun. But yeah, our childhood consisted of, go that way on a horse. And we did. We had a blast. And so I took a lot of that, put it in the writing, and then took a whole bunch of historical stuff from the Superstition Mountains. When we used to have a daily Western on TV in the 70s, Superstition Mountains and Lost Dutchman Gold was huge, involved in that whole genre. So it seemed like a natural way to start in Weird Frontiers. So then I just kind of built out around it. Arizona, a lot of people talk about diversity, and it's this big hot topic, like you have to be diverse, and you have to have this. But Arizona is a melting pot of different religions and different cultures. Hispanic culture, the Mormon culture, the different people came here to mine. It really is a melting pot of everything, and it still is to this day. It's a really cool place to live.
Well, us orcs, we just live everywhere.
Yes. So yeah, I knew you were going to go there. So I was like, oh yeah. So as much as I've never seen white orcs out in the desert riding, I would love to. I would have pictures, and there would be this whole pose. I think selfies would be involved. We don't really use Harris Hawks to feed ourselves. The Castilian culture was huge. The Lost Dutchman gold mine was the big rumor, but before that, we had the lost Spanish gold, and we had the Peralta mine. So we have a lot of that still here. A lot of the roadside shops as you go out towards Canyon Lake, go into Apache Junction, all talk about it. There's roadside museums. We had a big culture of Westerns here. We have stuff that I'm going to mention as, hopefully, if you guys really like my book, I'm going to continue to use a lot of the inspiration from local events. I change a lot of the names just because I don't want anybody to say, well, that's mine, you can't use it. So Fort Righteous is in it, which is the Fort Utah that was destroyed. And then I just put in some good old fashioned tall tales around it and had some fun with it. I think, the one good thing is if you study for 40 years, you hopefully get a lot of information. So
I was gonna say, yeah, it's like, were people more disappointed that you became a cop instead of a Satan worshiper? Or...
yeah, and some people would say we were both. Well, that's the big thing is like when you're a police officer compared to like when you're fireman, everybody love you. Everyone, like we talked to David about this. How do you know somebody's a fireman or a pilot? Well, wait 10 seconds, they'll tell you. As far as the cops, we just kind of blend into the background. Nobody really talks to us. You take somebody's husband, wife, brother, sister to jail, and it's just part of the job. I love doing it. I thought I did a really good job at it. I'm not ashamed of that at all. I know that police have gotten a really bad rap, but it was a great career. My dad is a retired NY, New York City police officer. Tankar actually worked out of the same substation as my dad, but many years later. Tankar's really not that old. But they both worked out of the 4-1. So I got to meet him at North Texas. So we had a great time talking about the 4-1 was actually used to be called the Little House on the Prairie. Just because that was basically, they were surrounded. The neighborhood around it was not a good neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
So we kind of shared some stories and growing up in the 70s and then in the 80s was an interesting, different time because my kids are like, what'd you guys do? I'm like, yeah, I guess we were just so bored. We went outside and made our own fun. So we did, and we had a blast doing it. So I just kind of took all that experience and silliness and put it in and wrote it down. And I said, well, if they like it, then I'll keep going with it. And as much as it was kind of like when I got hired in the PD, it was like nobody was smart enough to say no. So I just kept going. So, it kind of worked, I guess. I hope it does.
I think you'll be all right. And I always like independents and stuff who do some creation for TTRPGs and stuff. It's one of the reasons why we always have Greg on the show because he's an indie guy too.
Oh yeah, it's hard it's hard to get going only in the fact that you have to ask for help, and then once you start asking for help, the people that you deal with in the RPG community are wonderful. They will refer you to people. Joey Dosel is somebody that I ran into or was introduced to kind of sort of off the cuff from Greg Gillespie. He did some work on his book. I had noticed him. And then Kyle Rote is a Lost Legacy Gaming. He's an indie publisher that hasn't published yet, but he has some great stuff. So we became friends. We reached out on social media. I liked his stuff. We started talking. I have one of my other loves is baseball. So I have a baseball RPG game that is at the editor right now. I've been told by many people it's probably not going to be a big hit because kind of role-playing games and baseball don't go. But I think it's a good mix without being like Blood Bowl or something like that. But
well, I mean, considering that they made an official adventure that was all about being a barista at a coffee shop in a fantasy game. And anything goes these days, right?
Yeah, and it's just like, hey, if that's your thing, your special latte mix, I mean, good for you. I guess if that's the game you like to play, I mean, you're not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
When we were at, so one of the games that I haven't had a lot of exposure to is Burrows and Bunnies. So I believe his name is Dr. Jackson that was running it there.
Mm-hmm.
He's a phenomenal judge, DM. And I was watching him run it. He had the table right next to the Weird Frontiers table that I was playing at. So we had David and a bunch of guys that were just phenomenal players, and they were phenomenal personalities, but big and loud. And I was like looking over, and their target audience is very, very different than two different sections. But I got to admit, at the end, one of the bunnies ran down Godzilla's throat, and man, you could have heard a pin drop at our table. We were all rooting for the bunny. It isn't. we were like, go bunny, let's go. And it was great to see people being engaged and playing. And I kind of laughed because I'm like, literally rooting for a bunny to run down Godzilla's throat. But hey, they were having a great time doing it. So yeah, it's not my type of game, but
well, I made a video about that a couple of days ago, and the fact that we have so many forms of entertainment that are available to us now. You know, not just as gamers, but just as people. You know, literally anything that you're into that you can imagine, there's probably a niche hobby market for it. You know, whether it's, you know, collecting bottle caps or quilting or playing TTRPGs or, you know, collecting old movies from the 80s and stuff like me.
Well, you bring up a good point. Like the 80s, people were like, oh, you know, this whole shenanigans about girls didn't feel welcome. And you know, we didn't have this or that. I lived through that. I lived through the late 70s starting to play and 80s. Like we were just happy to have somebody to play with us. Nobody cared. It didn't matter. Now, that being said, as a teenage boy, you actually had to talk to a girl. You had to walk up and have a conversation. And you certainly weren't going to, the first couple of words out of your mouth weren't going to be, do you want to go play Dungeons and Dragons with me? That was not going to happen. So if the girls somehow felt slighted about that, which I don't think they did, you know, that whole thing is just kind of silly. From an older guy that grew up during that era, yeah, we didn't talk about it, but I played sports my whole life, and I didn't talk about Dungeons and Dragons in the locker room. I wasn't ashamed of it, but I'm like, hey, you hit a home run, and, you know, you drove the guy over to third, and hey, you know, my orc is one day gonna, you know, dress funny and pretend he's, you know, a different nationality. It's like, no, that wasn't something we talked about. I guess, you know, I should have tried it back then, but I didn't.
Well, I tell you, you know, speaking from my own experience, because it happened twice, I honestly credit a lot of the girls getting involved in gaming with the comic book Elf Quest by Richard and Wendy Peeney back in the day, because I had a couple of female players, you know, when I was much younger, and that's how I actually invited them into playing. You know, because I would see them reading Elf Quest, and I'm like, oh, so if they're already into this, they might actually like this.
Oh, I totally agree. It's like, so comic books, I'm big into comic books. I used to collect. You know, I have 3 kids now and a wife, and I don't get to collect, but used to go to San Diego Comic-Con with our comic shop and hang out. Same deal. We had, you know, mostly guys. Girls were always welcome. There just wasn't a lot of them. But I think as that became more mainstream and then the internet took off, there were some good things about the internet, is that all of a sudden everybody could just tune in and start talking to people and instantly connect. So the awkwardness of having to walk up and say, hi, do you like my comic book? Went away, where you got online, and yeah, there were females that actually were like, oh, I really like this character. I like this character. And then all of a sudden you're back and forth, and it was kind of a great thing as you got going. You know, AOL was the first thing I remember. The chat rooms, you get in and talk about everything else. God, I'm really dating myself here. But it was neat. I mean, you could get on any second and like connect all these people. But then it's also driven us apart in that, I mean, I grew up where you like, yeah, you might not like somebody, but everybody just got along. But now we just block and you know, turn people off, and that's not a good thing.
No,
it's sort of the benefit. That's the plus and minus of it, because we're able to go and, you know, find that little niche group of people out here who like those like 3 very specific books that we like. But then we're in effect kind of shutting out others, you know, from around us. So there's less obligation to have to conform and get along.
Oh, it's you know, conform is the whole thing. It's like, especially with role-playing games, why would you want to conform? Like, just be whoever you want. You want to be, you know, a elf. You want to be a, you know, dragonborn. You want to be, you know, I can't even name the different cat, dog, rhinoceros. I mean, they're like every cat, dog. Yeah. So if you want to be that, that's who you are when you walk in. It's like, I don't really care who else you are. And in my games, especially, the only thing I don't do in my games in my homebrew, I tell my guys, it's like, we're not doing any sexual content. I have no interest in DMing. That's a completely different game. Find some group that you want to do that with. You know, that's not me. But when you walk in that door or you log on with me, it's like, you're whoever your character is. So if your character's, I don't know, a giraffe, great. You're, you know, who was the guys from Toys R Us there? The Jeffrey the Giraffe or whatever. Yep. You're him. You have a machine gun, and you wear a leather vest, and you're Jeffrey the Giraffe. Good, cool. Tell us about Jeffrey Giraffe. I think we've kind of lost some of that because everybody's like, and maybe I'm just old enough where I just don't care. I just want to play. It sounds like an oversimplification of it, but it's like, I don't know. Everybody's welcome to my game. Sit down and play. I don't want to talk politics. I don't want to talk anything else, because we're just talking about this awesome world that I'm going to bring you into, or that you're going to bring me into, and that's all I want to talk about. It's like after you walk out of the door, once we got, and I don't want to go off of my soapbox here, but the same thing happened with sports. It's like if you like sports and you tuned in for a while, it was like you just get bombarded with political whatever. It's like, I literally want to watch you grown men play a game, or grown women play a game. I don't want to watch your political platform. I just want to watch you throw a ball or catch a ball, or you are doing something that most people fantasize about doing. Do it. Shut up about the rest and let us watch. And
so speaking of your world, I did want to ask a little bit about your campaign here, because as I'm looking over it, and I'm liking a lot of the things I'm seeing, and one thing in particular here has really stood out to me, and I don't know how to say the name.
Go ahead.
It is the Cholla cactus.
Oh, the Cholla cactus, yeah.
The Cholla, which is actually called a cholla. So the Cholla cactus is kind of it's an urban legend in Arizona, but it's a real thing. So the reality of it, I'll tell you the legend, and then I'll tell you the reality of it, and then I'll tell you the rattlesnake cholla, which I'm showing you. So the reality of a cholla is it's a nasty little cactus that if you even brush up against it, the thorns are so sharp they will actually stick to you. And once it sticks to you, it's a game of pincushion. Like, because you reach over to grab it, and then it sticks to that, and before you know it, you have it all over yourself. It's extremely bad with dogs, horses, or anything else that gets into it. So in Arizona, they call it the jumping cholla. So because it has a fine needle on it, if you get anywhere near it and brush up against it, it appears like it just jumps on you and sticks on. So that, because I have a crazy imagination, and Joey Dosel, who is one of my featured artists, he is spectacular. We sit down, and I think at some point we're working, but we're mainly throwing ideas back at each other. So I started talking about this cactus, and then he came back with this drawing. Joey is one of those guys you just have a lot of fun with, and somehow work gets done. So he was like, oh, I've got it. And like, I think an hour or so later, he had that, or at least the preliminaries for that. And so we kind of gave it an Arizona Weird Frontiers flair. And so it is a rattlesnake cholla, which is pretty much what happens. Is like when it bites into you, you feel like you get bit. Horses are known to buck. There's all kind of stuff that happens. None of it's good. But yeah, I adapted that for Weird Frontiers and had a lot of fun with it. And then, of course, statted it. And you will see that in my new adventure.
Yeah, Psycho Dwarf 9 apparently has had one of those kill a bike tire in Kingman.
Absolutely. They will, because what happens is, especially after they die, they blow. So you've got tumbleweeds, but you also get the cholla things, and they blow onto the trail. And yeah, they're kind of a mess. They're a big thing that we watch out for here. I'm training a big Irish setter to go out on the horses with me, and yeah, the first couple of rides was a mess. She just decided to stick her nose in it or paw in it. Thought it was cool. So yeah, she ran. I had to get it out, and then she just turned around, went back to the truck, and she's like, "No, all done. This hurts. Not doing this." So it's and that's some of the things is like for my adventure. That's what I did. I didn't really. It wasn't work. It was a lot of fun. So you have the Chapaya rider up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tell me about this.
So I was talking to David, and I said, "Hey, I've got an idea for a character class." And so I pitched to David like, "Hey, we could ride mountain lions." And he was like, because David obviously is a big cat lover. His foundation, he helps out a lot of the stray cats. But I was thinking dogs, bears. So dogs being wolves. And so David loved the idea. I pitched it to him. He turned me on to Bert Isla, who is my editor and also a dear friend of David. And so we statted it. we had a great time. We went back and forth. We didn't want it to be too over powerful, so there's a picture of the wolf, and they're each individually named. The wolf is called the Hataquilla. So I built up the legend around it. I put it in the book. You'll run into it. It'll kind of all be around it, and then it just shows up in this massive attack, and it saves your bacon. They ride in on the cats, and it saves your bacon. It's a big part of the book. It's a 0-level funnel. And it's just me having that gonzo fun. This is why we play, role-playing games. I want to ride a dinosaur. I want to ride a wolf. I want to ride a bear. I want to ride a cat. So the cats that we have around us are mountain lions. And when you run into one, they're a majestic-looking creature. They're also scary because they're quite big. So it's like, when I started creating this, we went away from Weird Frontiers, went away from the Cowboys were just going to attack the Indians. My middle son cracked me up because at first I was like, well, how are we really going to tell a story? And he goes, Dad, nobody wants to play genocide anymore. That's been done. We want to have fun. And so that was kind of like, okay, what would I want to play? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to play. So you don't get to play it as a 0-level funnel because you're squishy and you die quick, but it's an option towards the end. If you prove your mettle, you get invited back to be a Naimita rider, which is the mountain lion rider. So if you choose to do that once you level up, you can.
That's the thing. Everyone always wants to ride bears and wolves and all the cool big animals. No one ever wants to ride dung beetles.
You know what? One of my players, and my son loves this animal. I'm going to say it wrong. Capybara.
Capybara. Yeah.
Capybara. He's like, Dad. I was like, for you, I will stat one for you. You're not really indigenous.
Now I'm in.
Yeah. So, and that's the whole thing. It was very funny because if you guys have, judged or GM'd or DM'd for a long time, you come up with stuff and you let it happen in your game. And so originally that's kind of what it's like. I gave you a framework for 3, but if you want to ride, something else, write it. I mean, it's the class is very flexible in that you take away the firearms to make things more balanced, but you get this giant, powerful creature that gets its own attacks, and it's DCC, so we roll dice. If it goes bad, it's going really bad. But if it goes good, you could dominate a whole fight. So the whole thing in writing it was like, okay, you could, sub in a different animal that was maybe, indigenous to wherever your story was. And that's the fun part of it, right? You enjoy just making a story, right? Because we're grown people, and hopefully you're bringing in some kids to the game, and they love it, right? So if your audience wants to ride I'm trying to think of a spider, or that's not even off the wall anymore. I can't think of a really. What would be an off the wall animal you wanted to ride?
Earthworm.
Jumping spider.
Yeah, purple worm. You go the whole dune. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about Doom.
Yeah, so you were like, or what about Arizona? We're in orange, so why wouldn't you ride like a giant scorpion?
Chihuahua.
Chihuahua. I mean, you can just get and have fun with it, right? Because that's the whole thing about, especially the DCC community. I mean, it's just wild that Mutant Crawl Classics, X Crawl. I mean, people have just it's just gotten kind of crazy, right? But it's fun, crazy, and enjoy it.
Yeah, I understand Gonzo. I mean, I've run that kind of stuff before, and I've definitely read a lot of modules like that. Greg, you have any questions?
Not yet. I'm just listening quietly.
Okay. So the Kickstarter is live, and how long is it going to run?
It's going to run until August 1st. So we figure if you don't like me after a month, I will just get annoying and go away. The book is written. Bert is play testing it or doing a playthrough on his channel. He's been great about it. everything's ready to go. I've got some goals set for benchmarks past the 3,500 that it takes to fund it. And if we meet those goals, I've got the VTT assets that I'm going to throw in. And then if we get to the $5,000 mark, which I hope to do, you guys got to meet me a little bit tonight, but you get to see behind the scenes of the characters. So you get to hear the stories behind the stories. And I'm only doing that in the print version. No PDFs, nothing that you can cut and paste and send to your friends. You're going to have to literally take a picture of it with your camera, because the stories are not, well, they're not R-rated, but they certainly aren't going to be stories you tell in church. It's a lot of fun. I don't want to upset your YouTube with but they were a lot of fun. They're unapologetically me. I had a very, different childhood where I was given a lot of freedom to run around. And I grew up about a bunch of cowboys that were they were awesome, but they had flaws, and we celebrated those flaws. We didn't get mad at them for it. You just accepted it. And then we just had a lot of fun. And so I talk about some of those guys that are in the book. They're all unfortunately passed away. And I think I hope I get to share it with people. I'm doing a one and done for the Kickstarter. Once you get a copy of that, that's it. It's never going up for sale. The only thing that I talked about doing, and I talked about it with Tenkar, is that I might, if it's popular and somebody wants to bid on it, I might do a personal copy that's for sale at the auction for North Texas. I really felt like that place was home. I hadn't been to a convention in many, many years. I kind of got out of the whole convention scene, just kind of walked away from it, didn't like the feel of it. I've got 3 kids, so I coach baseball, I'm scoutmaster, I do all the things that, people talk bad about, but I love doing it. I spend a lot of time on my horse. So if people are interested in that, that's the only time you'll get a chance to have it. After that, we're burning the mold, so to speak. I'm not selling it. It's not going to be up on drive-through. The copies that are up on drive-through will also be great. They just won't be the annotated version. So
okay,
get me to $5,000, you get to that. We've got that also written too, so it's kind of fun. So you guys will use that against me. I can guarantee if you have me back on, you'll be like, okay, so tell us about this. And I look forward to those conversations. I think they're great. Just some great times as a kid where, we didn't have the rules and people didn't get quite so offended.
Yeah, I'm Gen X too, so I understand. I mean, I'm going to turn 51 here next month. So
yeah, we're like-minded in that. So
growing
up, it was fun. I just I laugh because my kids, so my kids are 25, 17, and 14, and they don't know what it's like to live in an era where they're not videotaped all the time.
Wow.
And the term videotaped is actually it's not even a real term anymore, because it used to be a tape. And so they, they don't know what it's like to not be in fear that somebody's going to record them doing something stupid.
I remember before we even had VCR tapes.
Yeah,
that's when the really stupid stuff used to happen. Like I remember, I come from the trailer park, so I'm literally trailer park trash. And I remember doing stupid things like jamming, letter openers in the electrical socket, because that was interesting. I only did it once though. But we used to turn over rocks and catch scorpions and centipedes and shit like that. And we did all the fun stuff. We had a KOA campground behind the trailer park, so we used to get in the woods and play in the creeks and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah, and you had like G.I. Joe dolls that were super tall, and you had the big Jeep. Well, the only really way to have a war was to stick an M80 or a cherry bomb underneath them and blow them up.
Yep,
because that's all good fun.
Shooting your action figures with the pellet rifles and stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. Your little green soldiers were absolutely target practice for whatever you decided to do. You climb trees, you fell out of trees. The dedication in my book, and I'll send it to you, is you'll really like. If you're a Gen Xer, you'll really like that, probably before, because it basically talks about that. And it's not judgmental. It's just something that I grew up with. It was like, you did something stupid. There wasn't anyone to blame, but the only thing you did was, okay, I can't do that next time. You came up with a better plan. You were like, okay, I got this down now. This will work. I know it'll work. And then so you just licked your wounds and went back. You didn't and then somehow we got to, oh, my son can't go out and ride without a helmet. He needs a helmet. He needs elbow pads, and he needs all this stuff. And I get that because we're scared that bad things are going to happen. But, we've kind of lost something in that. And I don't mean to lecture. I mean, it is what it is. But
you don't stop and ask yourself, how can I use this to gain clout on social media?
No.
Yeah,
definitely not.
Yeah,
I know that my elbows and knees are like kind of a massive scar tissue, pretty much from the age of 2 growing all the way up to 15 or 16. So
yeah, and the bikes that you had back then probably were not designed to do some of the stuff that you until the movie Rad, where they really started jumping bicycles. Bikes weren't designed to do any of that, so they literally would come apart. And
dirt bikes were very popular.
Oh yeah, if you had a mini bike, you were the taste of the town there. But
go-karts. Yeah, we used to get into trouble with go-karts, and I nearly flipped a 3-wheeler once. That was fun.
Yeah, those 3-wheelers were deadly. They were not fun. I got into that for a very short amount of time. I got into like enduro motorcycle riding. I was an avid mountain biker for a long time, and got into enduro motorcycle riding. And a few injuries later, and helicoptering down off of like some steep stuff, I'm like, yeah, this is not a good hobby. Do not do this. I'll go back to horses. Horses generally, you come home, it's safe, and you don't hurt yourself too bad.
Yeah, unless they get spooked or something and throw you. But.
Yeah, well, and that does happen. You will have the Troy Cactus story. I have a older lady that I ride with. She's 73, and she runs around, and she's just a joy to be around. She's just, but her horse stepped in a cactus, kicked it up on its hawk, and then it tried to get it off and started bucking, and she stayed on. 73, she stayed on, but then I guess he got it free, and it kicked onto its stomach, and then she went for another 8 seconds, and she went, and yeah, she ended up breaking ribs, and yeah. So horses, when it goes bad, it goes real bad.
Oh yeah.
And so in the adventure, I'm going to go back to my adventure because I'm actually here other than just chit chat. Right. You get to actually break an Arizona Mustang. So the Arizona Mustang is huge in the state of Arizona. We still have them today. The herd is still alive and well. Well is debatable, but they're still they still travel by the foot of the Salt River. You can go see them daily. They're usually sunning themselves. So characters start out without horses in Weird Frontiers 0 levels. So you actually get to break a Mustang. And it's a deadly encounter, which it sounds like, oh, you're going to be the barista from the coffee thing. Well, you get on that beast and ride, and it bucks you off. There's consequences, and there's rolls involved. And if you fail one of those rolls, we had a character when they did the playtest die. We had several of them die, and then we had when Bert was running it, another character 0 level. They're pretty squishy, but he died also. So that is one of the fun parts of the adventure. Is I take a lot of stuff like that and put it in there.
So it sounds like you do have some rules in this that you could easily be kind of pocketed for other games for riding animals.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. The whole large animal or big animal rider class, all the mechanics work in DCC. So John Watson, and I'm going to give him his shout out, loaned me his Skinwalker class, and I used it for one of my NPCs. And in return, we got to talking, and then I told him about my animal rider class, the Chibai class. And he was like, "Can I use that?" Because he was doing this great, and I didn't get to play it. I really wanted to in North Texas. It was like he was doing monsters versus your party members. So some people are party members, and some people are the monsters in the dungeon. But he absolutely loved the idea of you could go in there and wade in. So yeah, it's very versatile in that you can do all this stuff with it. I think it's easily transferable. The only thing you don't have is firearms. Like, to be a big animal rider, you don't have, you give up the right to have firearms, because let's face it, shooting off the back of animals isn't great. In the movies, it looks really cool, but most of the time you can get a shot off, and then staying on becomes the trick.
Uh-huh.
So,
I didn't even think about that.
yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Apaches actually had that trick where they could hang underneath the neck of the horse and shoot from under it. But
absolutely.
No, it's Comanches could do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, if a horse is trained, it can do. And so cowboy action shooting is a big thing where they shoot off horseback. But a horse has to be very well trained for you to do it. Most of the time, they won't let you shoot off them. They won't like. So that's a horse. Now you put yourself on a giant mountain lion or a giant bear or a giant wolf, it's probably not going to like that. So we kind of spend a lot of time trying to make it balanced and not make it so overpowering that it would just take over your campaign. But if you make your rolls and you wade into a party and you get some really good rolls, you roll some, it's just like, it's DCC. If you roll it, man, it comes true. It's like, it's just playing a wizard in DCC. If you nail your rolls early on, you become, almost unstoppable. So it's kind of fun. At least
I'm actually kind of curious. What made you go with DCC and not something, a little bit more mainstream, like, D&D 5th edition or something?
5th edition.
I'm not a fan of 5th edition, so don't take that as
No, I did. Here's the thing: DCC has done a wonderful job of reaching out to new writers. I'm 51. I was amazed by the reception I got when I inquired. They had the Scrivenery. They have all these videos online. Do this. They've been extremely warm and welcoming to. When you decide to publish for yourself, you're like, is this going to be any good? Are you going to be terrible? I liked how flexible they were with what they could do with their systems. I liked how they were branching out. They were warm and invited and say yes. I thought about Boot Hill. I thought about Deadlands. I looked into both of them. A few friends said, you've been doing this long enough, because I was trying to do the baseball game. I still am. They were like, why don't you just write your own rule set? And then I'm like, why? This works. I love how it scales. It's, it's fun, I guess, for lack of, it's not a very descriptive word, but it's fun. The Weird Frontier setting, I think you can do a lot with it. I think I love David's work. Deadlands and Savage World was I know they're kind of one and the same. Pathfinder.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about it. I looked at it. 5e was never a thing. I don't really like it. It's not my game.
Yeah.
BX is my game. BX is what I grew up with. 1e,
Yep.
I'm happy with. I think the baseball game, when you're on the field, will be my rolling and my rules. But when you walk off the field, I think for the off the field hijinks and the stuff the characters get into, it'll probably be either like Mark Hunt's, I think I got his name right, his Gangbusters BX, or it'll be like a simple system where 5e, my problem with 5e is you don't die. It's really hard to die in 5e, and that's not life. Like in the Old West, it was really easy to die.
Oh yeah.
So I think it didn't really fit with what I wanted to do. I like that, people play 5e, whatever brings you together, gets you around a table and has you make friends. I'm all in. But it just wasn't my game. I think, and I looked at like a revised Boot Hill, but I honestly, I didn't want any part of Wizards of the Coast.
I can understand.
Didn't. I have a whole campaign for Dragonlance that kind of predates Huma. Goes right after Huma, and I wrote the whole thing, and Wizards of the Coast won't talk to you. I'll upload it to our website, if we, and all that stuff. I just didn't like the way they treated anybody. So I was just like, and you're old enough that it's like, I'm really not going to pay my mortgage with this. So I just, I guess I really like the way, to answer your question directly, I really like the way DCC treated me. I thought they were open, fair, honest, kind. They answered my questions. They didn't treat me like, well, you're an idiot, which I probably was, because I asked a lot of questions. David would probably be like, okay, I want you to talk to this guy and not me for at least a month. But, no, it was great. There's so many different systems out there. That easy D6, which is a very simple system, but I wanted something a little more complex than rolling like a 6-sided die. I think it's a really cool system to teach people how to play, but I wanted something complex where you could. I like 3.5, believe it or not. It's crunchy and you can build it out. I like building characters, and I guess that comes from a time where we didn't have computers, so you'd sit down with a piece of paper and you do all that
and map your character out.
Yeah, so you'd map out your build and do all that. I still enjoy doing that. So if you get too basic, you can't do much. But in the Old West, you need to die, and you need to die quickly when you do something silly. and it's just that's part of the game. I think there's certain generations that don't really want to do that. They don't want to die. They want to build this little person and keep it forever. So if that's your game, good for you. I mean, if that makes you happy, I mean, I don't judge you for that, but I'm also like, that's not my game and that's not what I wanted. So my characters are all, they all have flaws, which I kind of celebrate and like. And I think in 5e, we don't really have any flaws anymore. We have this very vanilla system where everybody's the same. And that's the whole thing is like you rolled up a character back when you started playing, and like if you rolled great, man, you were like, oh yeah, this guy's my guy, or this girl's my girl. But if you rolled poorly, you're like, oh, let's see how this works. And that was the whole thing about it. You'd give them a weird backstory, and then you just go with it. And before you knew it, that's one of your favorite characters. And I think you lose that in 5e. So.
Oh, don't worry. It's going to get much worse.
Yeah, it's going to get much worse when they bring out that next edition.
Well, at least, plus one of the other things I do like with Goodman Games is that they will on their store, they'll highlight third-party publishers. They'll go that extra step to help get other names out there.
Yeah, I mean they've been wonderful. They instantly put in an order when I went live. I've been working with Matt Robinson, Jillian, and then Stefan, and they were spectacular. Everybody I've reached out to has been, just great. So I really have anything bad to say. I know, people have warned me off about them for whatever, and I just haven't experienced anything. When you're 51 trying to do something brand new that you've never done before, when people are willing to talk to you, I mean, it's a great thing. It really does make you feel kind of like, okay, I can do this. And not that I ever doubted it, because I grew up around horses. You just kind of jumped on it and rode. So that's kind of what I did. And I'm not saying I did well at it. Bert, my editor, has been spectacular. Like, yeah, Matt, that doesn't work. And then I'm like, well, how do we make it work? So it's been a fun adventure learning. And then I learned this wonderful thing called about the bleed. Originally, we were going to sell it at North Texas, but it didn't pass the publisher because of the layout went 2 millimeters into the bleed. I don't know the numbers. The bleed made my wallet bleed is what I know about. And so I learned all this fun stuff about layout and all that jazz, which was interesting, but it's an exciting new way to do it. But DCC, I got to admit, I couldn't not recommend them to any new person wanting to get out there. Yeah, they'll put your stuff up for sale. I was talking to them today. I sent it, or yesterday. I don't know, the Kickstarter was going. I'm waiting for them to kind of wade in. But yeah, and then David, that whole group of Weird Frontiers guys, they're a tight knit group. They're very friendly, and that was the community that I was joining. So I really liked it. It just, I met a bunch of guys that had gray hair in their beard and wanted to talk to me. And then I also met some younger people that just were kind of inspirational, in they were maybe somebody that my son wanted to talk to, my 17-year-old. So, it was all good. I went to the mixer in North Texas. I was a little bit, hey, I'm low hanging fruit if somebody wants to start a fight. I mean, I'm a retired police officer, heterosexual male. If you get on the internet and look me up, you'll find out that I was in a couple shootings. I mean, I'm low hanging fruit if you want to go after me. So it's one of those deals where I'm sure that I could, I could be the poster child for somebody saying, I'm this or I'm that. But the reality is, I'm a dad of 3. I'm a scoutmaster. I'm a baseball coach. I do things because I want to do them. And, we live in a community where we talk a lot about the infighting, about, this. But the reality of the community is that it's a very nice community. People are actually decent until they get to fighting on each other. Then all things. But that's everything now. It's like people get crazy. And then, I don't know. And the other thing, too, is you turn it off, you don't have to listen. And I don't. So it's become an interesting adventure, and there's been some failure, and then I bounced right back with it. So,
I'm gonna, I'm glad you found your group with DCC. There's another group I would recommend to you, just because I really like these guys. Greg also really likes these guys. I think Castor really likes these guys too. But if you get a chance, talk to the guys at Troll Lord Games, because their amazing adventure system would also fit Western themes really, really well. And they just brought out a brand new version of it that actually I just got some updated rules for it a couple days ago. But they're really great guys. They work out of Arkansas, and they source locally for paper, ink, and everything else, and they print locally. So it's all 100% made in the USA, and they always give veterans discounts and everything. So they're great guys.
Yeah, I got to meet them at North Texas and loved everything. I got introduced to apologize, I can't remember his name, and his wife. He had this great T-shirt on. I could hear it was a dial-up modem, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can hear your shirt.
Was it Steven or Davis?
I'm not sure. His wife was there too.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Well, if he had glasses, it was Steven.
Okay.
If he had a beard, it was Davis, and if it was anybody else, it was probably Jason Vay.
Okay, I'll have to look that up. But yeah, so I actually was looking at the system last night on drive-through, and I was like, I'm old. I like the paper copies, and I was very disappointed. So I had to get on Troll Lord, and I actually was trying to order a copy. I meant to buy some stuff when I was there, and then I got to talking, and I was having such a good time that kind of the weekend went super quick. So I didn't end up buying a copy. And then Hyperborea is another game system I really like, Jeff.
Yeah, he's really cool.
And I ended up going to dinner with him. So he was spectacular. That whole crew over there is aces. I supported him on his first Kickstarter and have the original books and the original modules. Love that. So yeah, there's a bunch of great games. And like I said, if this goes well, we've also talked about like bringing it out into other game systems. So the great thing about the community is, it'll Weird Frontiers, because David's there. I liked it, but yeah, it can easily be modified into Troll Lord or any of the other systems. And so I've already looked at that, but it's kind of the cart before the horse. As a first-time publisher, I haven't got there yet. I'm hoping to.
I can understand. And sometimes, a lot of publishers that I know, what they'll do is when they're bringing out like a new adventure or something like that, they will publish it with several different formats in mind. And DCC actually does this as well, because they've got a Kickstarter for, I think, some brand new adventures going on. And the format is 5e and DCC. It's for Caverns of Thracia, actually, which is written by the late Janelle Jaquays. But they're bringing out a new edition of that, and they're offering it both in 5e and DCC versions. So, as I know this campaign is going to be successful. I can already tell. But on the next one that you do, look ahead at some of your other systems and stuff, and think about making those your stretch goals and things too. Like, like if I hit like 1,000 or whatever, hits on this, then I'll release this version for Castles and Crusades or Amazing Adventures, etc.
Yeah,
that's always good.
It's funny that you brought Castle Crusades because I tried to get into a game of Castle Crusades when I was there for that specific purpose, and the game got canceled, or I think maybe somebody got sick. I'm not sure, but I showed up and nobody was there. I'm not sure what happened, but Castle Crusaders was one of the other systems that I was looking at. So yeah, I appreciate your input. I mean, that's absolutely what I was looking at. Moving forward, it's like, yeah, if you want to play it, I want to sell it to you. I want to be a businessman, but I also want to have fun with it because at 51, I have a pension. My wife and I run a different business. Yeah, I want to bring it to anybody that wants to play it. So yeah, looking forward, my next thing. So I will share with you is that I wrote the sequel to the adventure that you're seeing parts of right now. I've already got it written, and the third one is about halfway written. And then my editor was like, "Stop right now! You've got to sell the first one and get that going before you sell the second one." Because originally I started thinking I was just going to write this giant campaign book, like with a whole setting, but as a new artist or a new writer, you don't really want to do that. You want to start small. You don't want to end up with a whole bunch of. But I grew up like. And do you remember like the first time you picked up like the Player's Handbook or the Dungeon Master's Guide or the folio, and you've started flipping through it, and then the comic strip at the bottom, you were just like, oh wow, look at this. So I started talking to Joey, the artist that I'm mainly working with, and I was like, yeah, this is what we're doing. He's like, Matt, that's insane. I'm like, I know. And so we had to tone all that back. So you got the first part of the adventure, but the second part's already written, and the third one's about halfway done.
Well, but I wouldn't listen too closely to your editor because I'll tell you a secret. One of the things that will pull people in to like an adventure series or something like that is if there is like a continuation type thing. Like okay, let's say I'm going into the store for the first time and I see one of your adventures on the shelf. I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. If I see 3 of them sitting on the shelf, I'm going to be like, oh, this is a series. Well, this is kind of cool. This I could make a whole campaign out of this. This is an idea. And then if you've got a campaign setting to back it up too, it's like, well, this is even better now. I this is a whole new thing for me to explore and get into, a whole new rabbit hole. And
I agree.
And most of your sharper GMs and more experienced GMs, even if they don't run your adventure, word for word, a savvy GM will still crib parts of it out to use in their own campaign. Like, let's say you have encounters with, the living cholla cactus or something like, okay, that's cool. I'm going to throw that, but I'm going to use that in my sandbox adventure over here. Or, like I was reviewing Avarice and Ambition the other day, and the thing that jumped out about me on that system was I was kind of like, oh, hey, they got these monster trophy rules where parts of the monster, not only do they have a gold piece value attached to them, but they also have special properties if you ingest them a certain way. So I was like, that's awesome. That instantly had me sold. So of course I wanted to incorporate that into my game. But most of the time, people who are picking up modules are GMs, and GMs are always looking for new stuff that they can add to their games. And the more stuff you have, the easier it is for them to get into.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. So talking about building your own setting, that is one of the things that I went out of the way. So if the VTT set either is for sale or it's going to go with our stretch goals, you'll see that it's actually the map that you're playing on is very small, but then when you actually get the VTT of it, it's huge. And it's enough where another judge can build their campaign around it. There's also NPCs buried in the outer areas of the book that you're never going to find as a 0 level character because you're squishy and you're not going to go exploring. You're going to run to get to level 1. You're going to go here, 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 and go to level 1. And that's pretty much how the playtests have gone. But if you actually start looking around, you're going to find Amelia is a little Tommyknocker, a little girl that's buried in the. I'm not going to tell you where she's buried because you're going to have to read and find out. But she's buried in that book, and now you're going to have to go find her, or you'll find, the Arizona Ranger, or there's and his sidekick is buried in there. You're going to ask him some questions. It's like, what's their story? You're going to find the Skinwalker, who was a character that's buried in the book that you wouldn't know is a Skinwalker until you start digging into it. In the second adventure, she shows her true colors like right away. But I buried a lot of Easter eggs all around because I grew up in that era where exactly what you're saying is that's what I loved about it. It was like, this is a great book and I want to play it. But when I'm done, I'm putting this here and this here and this here. And this is going to be my own campaign. And I'm hoping that people like it enough to do stuff like that, because I think that's the biggest compliment, is that you as a judge take my stuff and go, okay, so I'm going to say, they go out into, early Tempe, or they go down into the Chiricahuas, but you said you were from Tucson. So that's a whole different area, but it's part of Arizona. So yeah, so I'm going to start here, but yeah, I'm going down, and we're going to go into the Chiricahuas, or we're going to go down into the different caves or the different mines, or whatever you decide you're going to do with it. I think that's the biggest thing about a book, is to put out something where somebody can take it and run with it. I think that's a really cool thing, exactly what you said. So I tried to do that. Hopefully I got there. Obviously it's my first one. I'm looking for feedback. I'm hoping, people are honest and with me and telling me, hey, you could have done this, because hey, at 51, I love to learn. So it'll be interesting. And I've listened to all you guys at North Texas, I just sat and listened to everybody that would talk to me. And you guys were all wonderful. You're like, do this, do that. And I was like, a lot of that ended up in the book. So I think it's cool. Like exactly what you're saying.
Well, Greg, Castor, our hour is up. You guys have any questions?
I'm looking at the Kickstarter now, and I see that it's for 12 0-level characters. Have you ever thought about having it? Is it possible to do like rotating DMs and have like 12 actual people?
You know what? That is something that would be extremely fun. I would love to do something like that. It's disappointing it is the majority of the time I play now is online, because I guess everybody's gotten to a point in their life it's just easier to log on and play. But yeah, 12 individual people. If you're that good of a DM, I'd say go for it. That's a lot more fun than you have 4 and you have 4, because then it's just that log of I have to do this guy and this guy. And I think that's spectacular if you can do it. That'd be something like I watched that happen in a BX game, and there had to have been close to 20 people playing, and they were playing behind us at North Texas. And I thought, this is going to be a mess. But yeah, if you're that good of a judge, awesome, do it. I think give me some feedback on how to make it better. I think all that stuff is fun. Like if I get 12 people in my house, I would literally never play, online again. To be real honest with you, that's the way I like to play. If we had, in the 80s, we went to the public library, and the parents had rented out like the back room, or they donated it to us, and that's how we played. And when we got too many people for one game, we just open up another game and play. And I think that is the best way to enjoy anything. So it also keeps people from getting, like when you're around the table, people tend to get along, and you realize this is a real person. So you don't get so pissed off about silliness. And I think online people just tend to get mad and turn you off. And you're like, I'm never playing in that game again. You killed my, barista. My barista was the best barista ever. And you killed him. And he was going to go on to do wonderful things. And yeah, that's fine.
He was going to invent a new kind of soy frappe latte.
He was just starting to pay off his student loans.
He was in line to make manager employee of the month.
Yeah, what you're saying, I would love to run that game. On the Kickstarter, one of the things that you can buy is a personal game with me online. The original thought was to actually get you all on horseback and bring you out to the massacre grounds, which is a real site. There's several local legends about it, so it's a real place. I took some pictures. There's some art that goes along with it too. The art is obviously, you guys, I don't think that have that piece, but I'll send it to you. But it's a real place, and it has its own local legends and stuff about it. So the original thing was to like ride you guys out there on horses, and that was going to be my top tier thing. But unfortunately, there was a forest fire, and I don't know when they're going to let people in there. So that just happened a few weeks ago. I think actually more like last week or the week before. So we're not getting out there anytime soon, but that was my original thing, is to get people on horseback, ride out there, play the game out there. And that's kind of insane. But I'm like, I'll get you on a horse, no big deal. But then I'm thinking that's probably a liability. And as stupid as I am, I'm not that stupid. So I was just like, yeah, it's probably not a good idea. So you do get to play with me. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but probably more like games of 5 or so. But yeah, I've run the game with 3 players with 4 characters. And one of the things that I've written in there is that you can replenish your level 0s every place you go, because it kind of gives you a local flair. So if you go into the Mormon fort, guess what kind of characters you're getting?
Mormons.
Yeah. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're getting, like, people think of Mormons like they're dressed in shirts and they come to your house and they want to talk to you about Jesus. But you also got to remember the other part of Mormons where they were hunted. So you have some rough and ready dudes that were Mormons. Like they were hardy, and they knew what they were doing, and they knew how to live off the land. So it's like you'll get something that you don't. And then when you go to the Yavapai Apache village and all your level 0 squishies have been dead, well, guess what you're getting? You're getting a bunch of Apaches. So that's super cool. And so I kind of built that in there to reload you. Plus, also, I'm hoping it gets your juices going. Like, hey, there's a story here. And we've got some local legends here. It's like, oh, wait a minute. So now this kid that is that you meet in the fort that dreams about being a gunfighter, and you meet him really quick, but he's so-and-so's son, and he's really young. So hopefully you're like, all right, cool. I like this kid. So now in my story, it's 5 years from now. What's he doing? What adventure is he involved in? Or the Yavapai Apaches, we go up there into the superstitions. The reality of the real story of the Yavapai Apaches is they controlled the whole Superstition mountain range. They literally kept progress from happening. And that's a good thing. That's like, they were that badass. They ran through the mountain range, and the U.S. military had to chase them out. It did not have a happy ending, but they were a dominant horse warrior, and it's super cool. That's the real story of it. How it ended was not cool, but there's a wonderful story in there. Like, what is that guy going to go do? And that's the inspiration that we all play with, and that's exactly what you're talking about before about the campaign. But yeah, you guys buy it, support. I appreciate you having me on. I know that I'm burning a whole bunch of time. It's been wonderful talking to y'all. I know I probably talked too much.
Well, I'm happy to let you know we've managed to get over 50 backers for it now.
Awesome. That I love it. Hey, thanks, guys. Like I said, I am going to be. So I'm going to do my little promo. Support local.
Yes.
So Arizona, we're having, and I don't know these people, so I'm literally giving them a bump because I'm excited to go to a con that is 5 miles from my house. Instead of flying to Texas, and I will fly to Texas probably for the rest of my life to go to that one. That was awesome. But Crit Hit is this weekend, and I will be there walking around. I only look scary. Come up and talk to me. I'm going to have my iPad with me. If you want to get a preview of the book, you can't send it to yourself. I'm just going to let that know, but you can actually look at it. Some people are like, oh, we don't know if you're going to deliver. And I get that. People do lie. I don't. So I'll have it with me. You can flip through it if you like. And you can get, I think I hired some good artists. You guys didn't ask me about the cover. Can we talk about the cover?
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, let me post it back up real quick.
And we also do have one question in the chat there that maybe you can address.
Okay.
This one.
Yep. Vaban says, "Sorry for the late arrival, but I have a question. Is the Kickstarter money going for art funding? I ask because I see it as a drive-through fulfillment."
Okay, so all the artists have been paid up front because when I hire people, if somebody works for me, I want them to be paid first. If somebody's going to take a hit on money, I want it to be me. So that's just the way I work. So everybody in my book has been paid because I just work like that. Good people deserve to be paid for what they do. Artists, especially people, the AI art, I won't use it. I don't like it. It's typically very weird. And people are like, "Oh, you just haven't learned how to use it." I'm like, I don't really want to use it because I've made a connection with these artists, and artists are frustrating. They have ideas, and sometimes their ideas aren't your ideas, so you have to talk it out. So all my artists, everybody on the book's been paid. So literally, this money is to fill the big giant hole in my wallet. So this was not cheap. When you see the art, there are 18 to 20 pieces of original art in there. I know that we're going to do the layout again. I don't know if we'll put editing more in there, but did that answer? Hopefully that answered your question. The cover. Go ahead.
Oh, I actually had one more question that I don't think was brought up. How many pages is this?
49 pages as of right now, which it was 57. Bert did a good job making it a little smaller. We didn't cut out any information. He just modified my layout a little bit. I did my own layout the first time, and as a first-time person, I thought it was good. Bert's is better. So it kind of chopped down, and I think he kind of took out some of the clunkiness and streamlined it. So we're down to 49 pages, which is a pretty big adventure. And you've got a bestiary of new creatures that are indigenous to Arizona. You've got obviously the rattlesnake cholla that we talked about. You've got the new player class. And then you've got a pretty long adventure that it's not your typical funnel where you go out and you're done with it in an hour. You're made to kind of walk around. Some people have said, well, I could play this and it could be a 0 and a level 1, which if your characters hit all the different things, that is very true. They could actually be, as a judge running it, you could actually get to level 1 before you actually fought the main villain. Most people haven't because they're level 0s and they run through it, just try to get to that. But I built it as a sprawling setting, so if they start wandering and going after stuff and they live, they probably could be level 1 before they level up. So did that answer your question?
Yeah.
So the cover. So I got a lot of guff because I have a black and white cover, and it's not truly black and white; it's grayscale.
Yep.
So, T-shirt. When you grew up and you tuned into a Western, what color was it?
Like if it was Rawhide or something, they were in like that gray, black and white.
Exactly. So when I grew up as a kid, I watched The Lone Ranger. Absolutely loved it. Watched Rawhide, watched Bonanza, watched all that stuff. But it was all black and white. And at the end, they would say, tune in next week and the big title came over. So that I told you I paid my artist, and I paid my artist well, hopefully. But the grayscale cover is a throwback to that. And it's not me trying to be skimpy or cheap, which I laughed about because I'm like, no, it's what I wanted. The whole Superstition Mountains are in the background. Henry Martinez did the cover for me. He did an excellent job, I think. And then, so it's an homage to that whole era when I was a kid and we watched John Wayne movies were in black and white, and the world was in black and white because that's the TV we had.
That was, of course, before color was invented.
Yes, that's how old I am because my TV color matches my beard right now. But yeah, it's super fun. And if I ever got to the point where I did a collected edition, I would probably have a colorized cover because I think people like the color, and it really does draw. But for this one, I basically did what I wanted, and it's something that draws fond memories of being a kid growing up, sitting around watching the Lone Ranger. So just love that show. Loved my my youngest son is named Reed John, and obviously the Lone Ranger was John Reed. So
Right.
I just flopped the names, and that's what his name is, because I love that growing up. So there's an homage to all that. So that's how goofy I am. I just love, my oldest boy is named Morgan after Morgan Earp. My middle son is named Grant after Ulysses S. So love the Old West. And so the cover is a tribute to that. So just want to talk about that. Thank you for letting me.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you coming out and hanging out with us tonight.
Great
talking
talking with you.
Yep.
Like I said, we're over time, but all right. Thank you all, everybody out there in YouTube land, for hanging out with us tonight, and we do appreciate you. This Saturday, hopefully this time, we're going to have Alexander McCree hanging out with us, Mr. Axe himself, with
Nice.
talking to us about his Ascendant comic book, Volume 2. But of course, most of us being gamers, we're probably going to bug him about the Ascendant role-playing game, because, we're nerds. We do that. But anyway, thank y'all for hanging out with us tonight, and we appreciate y'all. Y'all take care. Good night.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.